Hello and welcome to Ikike Digest, your learning space on Home FTV. I am Kome Odomo. On Ikike Digest, we strive to emphasize environmental issues affecting communities and our food system. We highlight policy gaps that do not meet the needs of the people and will provide our listeners with adequate environmental information. In today's edition, we will be looking at People's Power for Environmental Justice. People's Power for Environmental Justice. Environmental justice requires collective actions, community empowerment, as well as exploring the roles of people's power in driving environmental justice. We will examine how individuals, communities can mobilize, advocate, and demand change. This concept is built around several key principles, which involve ensuring fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of their backgrounds in environmental decision-making process. Today's edition will promote building local power and centering impacted communities in decision-making process. And we have an environmental expert and a people's person, His Royal Majesty, King Bubaraye Dakolo, in the studio to explain better how community can prioritize and incorporate public policies through legal process. His Royal Majesty, King Bubaraye Dakolo Agada IV, is the Ibinanowe of Ekpetiama Kingdom, the chairman Bayelsa State Traditional Ruler Council, and chairman Conference of Ijaw Traditional Rulers and Elders. His Royal Majesty, now member among the greatest of Africa literary greats, as a fellow of the Association of Nigerian Authors from November 2023. He is the author of 5 topical books with critical acclaimed audacious book titles, such as The Riddle of the Oil Thief, Once a Soldier, The African Voice, Pirates of the Gulf, and Kingfisher. An intimate portrait of environmental injustice in the Niger Delta, King Dakolo stands out as a loud voice in the African continent. He became the first-class traditional ruler in Bayelsa State in 2016 when the Ijaws of the Ekpetiama Kingdom rose as one and anointed him as the paramount traditional head. He was a founding member of Ijaw Youth Council. He is the founder of the Non-Rivers Keepers Organization, a community-based organization whose objective is to protect one of the most historical significant rivers in the world, which is the River Non and its environment. As an alumnus of the Nigerian Defense Academy, University of Port Harcourt, and Coventry University, he holds degrees in chemistry, education, engineering, and terrorism. He advocates for a Nigeria free of oil and gas pollution, which, with great optimism, he believes that Africa must unite to develop appropriately. You're welcome, Your Majesty.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's a great honor to have you discuss this topic of how people can have power for environmental justice. And we would like to know, how much power does a community or an individual hold, first of all?
An individual has as much power as he would want to have based on what he knows and what he intends to achieve. However, it takes several individuals to make up a community. So if there are several individuals in the community that have that knowledge, it becomes easier. However, one person with so much knowledge could make others toe that same line, and before you know it, you have a mass movement of people who want a particular outcome. So it's like having a teacher in a classroom with 20 students, and then at the end of the class, the children or students are all enlightened on a particular subject. So that is the way it works. So one person strives to know, one person brings in the materials that people should know, and then over time, a lot of people will know, and then it becomes even a culture. It could be a culture, a tradition for a people to ensure that they do that which will benefit them and not otherwise.
So can you share some key challenges facing environmental justice movements and how they can be addressed? Those key challenges that are facing the movement.
Well, the challenges are many. I will just take a few key ones. One of them is that the government of the day, as the federal government of Nigeria, is a little laid back. So the government is not interested in even understanding that there are environmental issues. For instance, the key environmental problem for the people of the Niger Delta is coming from oil and gas exploitation. Now, that process is supposed to be regulated. And Nigeria has had a regulator, but it's more by name. The DPR was the regulator. There was even NNPC at a time that was posing as a regulator, even though it wasn't. And then in recent times, from 2021, we've had the NUPRC and one other one. These regulators are actually in the pockets of the polluters. And so when you're a regulator, you don't have the tools with which to regulate. Then you're just a regulator by name, a nominal regulator. And so when the federal government's regulator is nominal, then the people are out there to be butchered. The environment is out there to be destroyed, and it is being destroyed since 1956, the way it has never, ever happened before. That is one. The second one, again, is again from government. And how is it from government? We talk about judges, okay? Judges and lawyers. Now, when it comes to judges, if the people have a grievance and they take it to the court, which is the right place to go, most often than not, the judges seem to be tongue-tied, seem to be unable to take the right decision because they are compromised most of the time. And so what happens is, yes, the oil industry itself is also inimical to our solving this problem. The oil companies have gotten, the oil corporations have gotten so rich in working in the Niger Delta that if you take a matter to court for justice, what they do is to ensure that the matter runs forever. So you take it to the high court, federal high court, it will last there for 10, 20 years. And if you take the matter there when you are 30 and they keep it running for 10, 20 years, you'll be about 50. And then if you win, they're lucky to win, then they will run it again for another 10, 20 years at the appeal court. And you'll be lucky if you can sustain all of this. Just now, I've talked about 70 years lifespan. The man may have died off, and his children may not be able to continue. The rest of the community may not be able to continue. So these are some of the ways. The other way, again, is to come even inside the community and divide the community by creating groups and funding these groups against any voice that seems to be calling for justice for the people and the environment. And this bit too, they've been able to do so well. So these are some of the experiences. Now, the community people, what has come against them is huge. It's not natural. It is not like one elephant coming around to come and die, and so you want to clean the carcass. No. It's a multi-billion-dollar establishment in the name of an international oil and gas corporation. And so it comes with everything, ready to make sure that nothing is properly done. But sometimes I feel sorry for the oil and gas corporations because some of them who have international roots may wish that, okay, you want to go and do this thing there. This is the money, for instance, to relocate the farmers to pay compensation. In fact, a former oil worker told me himself that there was a time they were giving like $1 million to come and take care of a community where they wanted to do some job. But when the money came from abroad, got to them, and then the Nigerian oil workers came around, they were giving the community people 5,000 to 2,000, 10,000, and all of that. So the long and short is that they steal the bulk of the money. And so environmental justice becomes an issue. The other bit that I may still see as an obstacle is the educational system. How much of environmental justice or environmental issues are taught in schools? Okay? It is supposed to be part of the curriculum from kindergarten to the university level, to a PhD level. And once that is not done, then it will mean that, yes, you may be a graduate of physics, but you don't know much of what is happening in your environment. A graduate of history, you don't know much of what is happening in your environment. And this cannot continue for a people who are, for a country that is depending on oil and gas exploitation for almost all of its resources. You should ensure that people know what they're doing and things are done well. So the environmental struggle or the environmental justice or environmental pollution, the quest for environmental justice is also affected by those that are stealing oil. It is seeming that the stealing of oil, the oil theft, is also against this, because some aspects of oil theft that people don't talk about are infrastructural damage. For instance, when you bust a trunk line, the amount of crude that will come out is so much. Okay. But now, who will be busting a trunk line? It is someone who knows that to fix the trunk line will give him $1 billion contract. Okay, so it's some former MD of an oil company, a former director of an IOC who has gone to Houston to register an international firm. So he comes around, instigates that busting, and then the entire environment is polluted. And then he gets his $1 billion contract. He spreads the whatever around, and then life goes on. But the fact is that the environment is polluted and the people are polluted. So these are some of the challenges that the people have with respect to trying to bring about environmental justice in the Niger Delta.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. We have identified that communities are heavily marginalized by actions of these IOCs. Now, what can a marginalized community-led initiative play in mobilizing, advocating, and achieving environmental justice? How can their voices be amplified?
Yes, as difficult as it is to get their voices out there, over the years, particularly in my kingdom, what we did was to try as much as possible to work with groups like ERA, Friends of the Earth, Christian Aid International, the Amnesty, Environmental Watch, and all of that, to ensure that our stories are taken outside of our shores. Because what we got to know was that when these IOCs come with their expatriates to our environment, because of weak regulation, absolutely weak, almost absent, regulation, the IOCs behave like beasts here. But back in their homes, they are family people. They have children, they have wives, they have relatives, okay? And they are foreign people. They are people do not know that these guys are beasts. So what we have tried to do is to ensure that their people also know that this is your father, this is your uncle, is a beast back here. And once that happens, they become a little shy and they begin to behave well. And as you may attest, most of the court victories gotten by communities have been gotten more in foreign lands, because there they enforce the judgment. If you recall, in the riddle of the oil thief, it captures a judgment gotten here in Benin City. Okay, some years ago about gas flaring and so on and so forth. It is still being flared, so because nobody wants to respect the judgment locally here. But one, the community people must know the issues. Two, be willing to tell the issues. Three, be willing to collaborate. So they should see collaborators that are willing to help them. For instance, if a group of environmentalists come around the community and they want to understand what is going on properly, the community should be willing to volunteer that information and not to say, come and pay us. If you are not paying us, we're not going to speak. So in some cases, ignorance could be such that you demand that instead of doing what is supposed to be done. So communities have used all of these to get visibility, to make the polluters to have a change of mind. One vivid story that I may tell, because I experienced it myself, is what was behind the building of about a 10-kilometer road in Equatorial Kingdom. Shell had to dredge so much of sand from in front of my community, which led to most of the community caving in. But having done that, and when they finished building the road, that was a different story. But after building the road, they just installed 2 culverts. So those 2 culverts were not enough to take care of the damming that they did. They actually dammed the forest. Here is a swamp forest which floods every year. And then once the river overflows its banks, it flows through the swamps downstream. You now go and build a road, 10-kilometer road, through this forest, through this river of a sort, damming it and just leaving 2 small openings. It took the community people, most of us, working with people like Oronto Douglas and Patterson Ogon and all the NGOs that were available at the time, ERA, and so on and so forth, to compel Shell to come back, remove those culverts, and build bridges. Right now we have about 7 or so bridges in that area. And so the flooding, the perennial flooding that used to be there for years, which damaged, they caused damage worth multiples of billions of naira or dollars, any currency. Because one side had a perennially high water level, and then the other part perennially low water level, from year to year, from season to season. So these collaborations have made all the difference. People must speak out against what is unjust in the environment.
Okay, thank you very much for that. You really talked more of it, because I was going to ask you how community members can take ownership of the struggle, but saying that they collaborate with NGOs and other environmental actors is one way. I know that communities can take ownership. I don't know if you have any other way community can take ownership.
Communities can go to court, okay? In spite of all drawbacks, communities can go to court, okay, and ensure that the story around even the quest for justice is told, so that at the end of the day, if people hear, they will know when a judgment is procured. Yes, they will know that this is a procurement, because the gas was fled, for instance, the baby died, for instance, the burst was caused by the oil industry, for instance, and so on. Because if they try to explain it off with that word sabotage, okay, the community can demand for the saboteur. Go and bring the saboteur. For instance, the PIA has something in it that is anti-people, okay? What the security apparatus of Nigeria was not able to do for 27 years, the PIA has said that if there is any infringement in the exploitation process, the community will not get the 3% that's earmarked in the act. Yes, it has said so. Now, but this is a task that the Nigerian Army, Air Force, Navy, DSS, police, NSCDC, and everyone could not do for 27 years. You're now giving it to a local chief or a king and his people to do. How possible is it? When really, from our experience, someone could actually come from Cameroon by boat and get to Equatorial Kingdom. Nobody will see him. Nobody will bother him. Someone can come from Ghana to Equatorial Kingdom and nobody will see him and nobody will bother him. So these are some of the experiences we've had.
We'll go on a short break, and when we return, you'll hear what key strategies are in promoting environmental justice. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for a conducive and serene environment to carry out your research works and need the right content to be at your best? Are you a lover of academics and intellectual books? Do you seek proper works of research for knowledge enhancement? Or you want a place to read at your leisure? The Home Health Library and Resource Center is the right place to be. With our well-arranged and fully stocked bookshelves, searching for your preferred genres and authors is made much easier than you could ever imagine. With our well-experienced librarians and guides, you've got a reading and research pleasure to catch up with. At Home Health Library and Resource Center, Benin City, Nigeria, it is simply an unforgettable experience.
Welcome back. You've been listening to an environmental expert, His Royal Majesty King Bubaraye Dakolo, Agada I, the Ebenanowe of Ekpetiama Kingdom. He has exposed how communities wield power that can be used to win environmental crisis. So, thank you so much for the knowledge that you've been sharing. But I would like to know, as an author who has told so many environmental stories, how has storytelling and the media shaped public opinion that has driven environmental justice?
Yes, telling the stories could do a lot, could impact the society a lot. For instance, after publishing The Riddle of the Oil Thief, it didn't take too long before the Nigerian Navy, in decorating its senior officers later that year, in 2021, told the chief of naval staff at the time, while decorating the officers, said, "Gentlemen, I hope you are not going to join the rank of oil thieves, because some of your colleagues have been implicated, in that particular crime." So the oil thieving and oil thieves, that usage has become central, as opposed to people running around it, bunkering, bunkera, illegal bunkering, and so on and so forth. Instead of calling a spade. So the book, the title, and the material has emboldened people to call it what it is. So writing could actually enlighten people, give people a vivid picture, a vivid account of what is going on, the gory tales of what people are experiencing in the Niger Delta coming from oil and gas exploitation. And then so we'll want to enlist in the group of people who want a change for the better.
Thank you. So looking at the path that you have been following as an activist who builds broad coalition and mobilizes diverse stakeholders, how do you encourage communities and young activists to hold governments and these corporations accountable for the environmental justice?
Yes, it is written in the books that if someone wants to kill you, you should fight back. You should try as much as possible to stay alive. So communities should do that. And like I said before, you must have the right set of knowledge. Okay, so you must have the knowledge. You have to get those who will support you in the process. For instance, if you want to sue a company like Shell, okay, you should know that you want to go on a long journey. Yes. And so who are your lawyers, for instance? Shell will get the best sons, 10, 20 of them. So, but how many can you get? And who are those lawyers? Okay? And where are you suing them? Who are your other backers? Because if you go as a community alone, you may not go far. Okay, so you have to rally everyone. People must be ready to be on your side, which means they should understand what they are going out for. So that is important. And so communities are encouraged. And you must also note that if someone is coming to help you, the other question is, are you helping yourself? Yes, are you helping yourself? You must be open to new knowledge, to a better argument. That way, we can move forward. That is my thinking. So communities have to get that. The resilience will come from knowledge, from the point of view of knowledge. Because if someone comes to say you should sign some kind of nonsense, you should say no. It is your right to say no. Let me call my lawyer first. And the lawyer has to be a normal lawyer, not a bribe-eating lawyer. Yes, of course, who will want to just come and eat money. So these are some of the problems. But the community people must own it up before others from other communities elsewhere could support them.
So are there opportunities that are open for collaboration or probably knowledge sharing between environmental justice and initiatives?
Yes, they are always there. There are a lot of NGOs out there. There are a lot of books, for instance, out there. And then there are lawyers who are inclined towards some of these as well. And I mean, what is your interest? For instance, if I want to sue Shell, what do I want to achieve? Okay? Is it about ensuring that my people do not die anymore? Okay? What is the objective? Because some people, as they agitate, once you give them small money, they stop. Okay, so the original idea was to get some money. But if you are dead, how much money can you spend? So for some of us, we are looking at the real true justice. Can you do this thing better? Can you do it the way you do it in the Netherlands? Can you do it the way you do it in England? Can you do it the way you do it in America? Why do you want to do it one way somewhere in your home and come and do it differently in my home? It means that you do not have a value for my life and the lives of my people. And that is the bit that people should resist. Okay, they should fight for their human rights. It doesn't matter whether you are educated or not. Okay, you should know what is a good thing and support it, even if you can't read. So if those one or two can read around have explained to you, and it is a good thing, then you can give them the support, and not to be the Judas Iscariot anytime they want to kill Jesus. You come and offer yourself.
Yes. So we do know that women bear the brunt mostly when it comes to environmental issues. How can we prioritize inclusivity, diversity, and maybe equity?
Yes, the women are there. For instance, Her Majesty the Queen has been very helpful in these campaigns trying to reach women and all of that. But that is one side. There are some other female or women advocacy groups that don't seem to know what they are doing. Okay? What are they there for? Is it really to solve a problem or to get a photo opportunity? That bit has been commonplace. And for me, I feel bad when people leave the substance and chase shadows. You are interested in mopping the wet floor instead of fixing the leaking roof, And if you look at what I've just said without having to mention names of any group, okay, if you interrogate most of the groups, you will see why not much has been achieved in that regard. First and foremost, like when it even comes to anti-women issues, do you know what I say? I tell the women that, look, you should start from your home. What have you taught your child, your male child? What have you taught him? Because it's someone's male child that grows up to be someone's husband and becomes the beast. So what did his mother teach him at home? If you teach your children well, if you teach your uncles well, then you don't need to even come and bother anybody outside, because everybody has taught his or her son or uncle well and husbands well. And so there will be nobody out there that will exclude women. So what the women will need to do is to look inwards. How well have they fared in doing that, carrying out that responsibility that is theirs? How well have you groomed your male child? How well have you groomed your children? If you groom your children well, your boys well, there will be no rapists. Okay? So if there's a rapist out there, then that rapist definitely is someone's son. That rapist definitely is someone's husband, someone's uncle. So long and short is that the women must strive to do that which they are supposed to do, so that you don't come about mopping the wet floor. Fix the roof.
Can you give us your parting shots for today?
Well, I want to thank my audience for the time and to advise them to read, for instance. The Riddle of the Oil Thief is there. Once a Soldier is there. The African Voice is there. The Kingfisher and intimate portrait of environmental justice in the Niger Delta is there. And then Pirates of the Gulf is also there. So these books are there. There are other books by other authors, but I can tell you that if you read these books, you will know that Jesus Christ is Lord.
Environmental justice includes strengthening regulations and empowering communities with correct information to help them become protectors of the environment. And with this, we've come to the end of today's edition, and you've been listening to His Royal Majesty King Bubaraye Dakolo, the Agada IV, was the Ibinana way of Ekpetiama Kingdom. Thank you so much for availing us with your time. We do not take for granted this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you too.
Please join us in our subsequent edition as we discuss other environmental issues. Remember to follow us on our social media handles on EcoHomef and visit our website www.homef.org. I remain your host, Kome Odomo.